dry sermons, but everyone loved the church. And he got ready to leave, and he said, today I'm not, I just remember this as probably like an 8 or 9-year-old. I just remember this story.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, and sorry, but you just chose to sit on the front row, so you get the boomer. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon. I'm Tom Griscom. I'm on the Board of Regents. I also have chaired the Presidential Search Committee for Chattanooga State, so we appreciate you being with us. Let me sort of lay out a couple of ground rules. After Dr. Pollock makes some opening comments, if you have a question, because we're streaming this, could you come to one of the mics? You leave it, and I'll put this one back in the holder so you can just leave it in there. But please share your name, share who you are. Meaning, are you a student, faculty member, staff member, or just somebody in the community, so that we can share that with those who will be watching the stream. And then ask your question, and Dr. Pollock, I can promise you, will give you a very interesting answer. Let me sort of introduce now Dr. Kevin Pollock. And by the way, his wife is in town with him, came with him. I had an opportunity to meet her last night. She is out looking at the community at this point.
We'll be at the reception at 4 o'clock.
And her name is DeLynn, and they have 3 children. Dr. Pollock is the president of St. Clair County Community College, and that's in Michigan, close to Flint. And he's been in that position since 2009. He has been and is a strong advocate and leader for early middle college, for global awareness, international education, STEM, student service initiatives, and one thing we talked about last night, students are at risk, and really trying to help those students get to a successful path and get a degree or certificate to move forward. Prior to his position at St. Clair, he was the Vice President of Student Services at West Shore Community College. His career in education began as both a high school and a junior high school teacher. He served as an admissions director and as a director of enrollment and recruitment during his career. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Education and Master of Arts in Education from Central Michigan University, and his doctorate in higher adult and lifelong education from Michigan State University. So join me in welcoming Dr. Kevin Pollock.
Thank you.
And before I turn this over to your moderator, I'm going to start in with one question. And that is, after having read this background, Dr. Pollock, what else would you tell us about yourself and why you're here at Chattanooga State?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Don't go yet. It's nice to see eye to eye to somebody. The shorter people here, we are enjoying. After hanging out with Joe for I don't know how long, this has been enjoyable. He used that line first. So, yeah, what do I say? I could give you the long litany of 30 years in education, higher ed, and all the other stuff that goes on. So I'll give you something totally unique about me. I'm a musician, and I've played in bar bands and in bars throughout my career and my life. And my wife's always going, what kind of music do you play? And the best way to describe it is drunk sing-along music. So, and the more you drink, the better I sound as I play. So there's something totally unique about me. We're going to have a lot of questions and answers and time to talk. But he was joking because last night we had dinner, and my wife was there, and the very first thing he said was, you know how to play the Beatles' Rocky Raccoon, don't you? And I went, yeah, how did you know that? I Googled you. And so it does. So that's just a little piece of who I am. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really excited to talk with you. You know, for a second there, I wasn't sure if you're all going to show up or not. You know, it's kind of like have a party and nobody shows up. And we were already just joking about the fact that everyone's sitting right near the exit as close as they can. So, I mean, I want to answer anything you want to ask, and you can ask about anything. So, what would you like to know? Okay, she's like... Huh?
Yeah.
You have a piece of paper, you have a lot of questions, don't you? This could be like a game show. I could just come up and talk with each one of you one at a time.
We can do that.
No, it's okay.
We can take the mics out. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let's do that. Okay.
Go, you right. Okay. I do not have a lot of questions,
just
but I
kidding.
wanted my cheat sheet. I'm Michelle Olson, I'm the Director of our Educational Outreach Programs, and at-risk students are an important population here on campus for me. I was looking over your Vita, and a couple of the presentations you've recently done were coming together, student success in the community college, and then one making the community college cool. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to know a little bit about what that means to you and how we can better serve the at-risk students in our community.
Sure. Let me just start with the first thing. The first thing that this college has to do, at any college has to do, is put the students ahead of everything else we do. And if you're not doing it yet, that's what we have to do. Students have to come first, and that's a simplistic piece of what you're going to say, but it's the truth. Everything comes out of our students. The interesting part is the fact that this has changed over the years, because now student success is a huge piece. Now, you're getting graded on student success by the state. You're getting graded by the feds. You're getting checked by the community. You know, you have all these pieces, and those are important reasons that, yes, you want to pump up your graduation rates, and yes, you want to pump up these other things, but you know what? You should be doing it because it's the right thing to do for the students. That's the first thing. So the first thing here is students. The at-risk students are a huge piece of that. You, because of the fact, as a community college, you're open access. You take everybody. I firmly believe that faculty at a community college have a much harder job than a faculty at any four-year institution. And it's simply because of the fact that you have such a diverse group in your classroom. You know, we had student, one year, we had a 14-year-old, and we had an 83-year-old. That was our oldest and youngest. Where else are you going to get that? And then the academic backgrounds. You're not sitting in a four-year school where everybody comes in with a minimum grade point average and a test score that's above this, and they all have this background. You have students that are at risk because of math skills, English skills, reading skills. You have adult students that are coming back and they need a second chance. How are you going to work with them? The biggest focus right now in community colleges, and if it hasn't come in front of you yet, is the fact that you're moving from access to success. You're going to be judged on how the students come out the other side, not how open you are bringing them in anymore. And that's going to go back to that point. Now, the two pieces that she talked about that I talk about, I do a lot of national presentations. A week and a half ago, I just did my 100th national presentation. And I do a lot of writing as well on that. A lot of it's based on student success models. So we can talk about best practices around the nation and all these other pieces. What you have to do, though, is you have to understand that we have to find ways to support the students. The first thing about student success and about working with at-risk students is you don't lower standards. You're not lowering them down just to pass more students into a classroom and out the other side because we're going to be judged by numbers and what we're doing. What it has to happen is you have to raise those standards, keep them up the high as you want, but you have to find the support mechanisms. And the one thing about supporting student success models, and especially at risk, is there's not one thing that's going to fix it. It's going to be 8 things, 10 things, 12 things, 15 different things. There also isn't one department on campus that's in charge of that. It's everybody. It's everybody. The maintenance people. It's everybody. When students walk in your door, before they walk in the very first classroom, they have between 15 and 20 different processes they go through, and every one of them gives them an opportunity to walk out the door first. The application process, the payments, the selection of classes, buying their books, going back and forth, placement testing, orientations, boatloads of things. You got an at-risk student, just getting through that should be considered a success. Now, I know that a lot of the things you've talked about is blending some of your types of programs together where you're having a developmental course and then you have the student in a regular class at the same time and they work hand in hand. That's great. I totally support that because there's a lot of models out there that will show, and a lot of research that will show, that a student that's strictly in developmental courses, for example, are going to feel that they're not getting anywhere. There's no success for them. I'm already been labeled as somebody who's inferior in some sort of ways, and I'm taking classes that won't transfer probably, and I'm taking classes that I got to take these just to get to that. So student success is this huge piece. The at-risk student pieces are even harder because sometimes they're hidden. I'll give you another example. We all know and we all talk about all sorts of things that our students do here, and we can talk about how they are in the classroom. You know what happens? Is we tend to overlook all the other things that we take for granted. Like, they can meet peer groups. They have a built-in mechanism at home that supports them. You have a lot of students that have a mechanism at home that doesn't support them at all, that discourages them. Adult students, females, for example. Why are you going taking classes? I need you here. So a lot of that is learning all those other mechanisms. And I can talk forever. I do national long talks. Sorry, I could go off on my tangent here. By the way, I'm waving my arms because I'm getting extra points for my steps I'm not getting as I do this on my band. So, making the community college cool. On that, it was a presentation that actually came through the idea with one of my vice presidents and our registrar and myself. And the thought was this: is community colleges are not looked at as a cool place to go. And we made it very simple. I use the example, the lady sitting here in the front. Okay, we're all parents, and all of us are talking about where our children are going to go next year for college. And you go Georgia Tech, and you go, I'm going to Mississippi, I'm going to go to Tennessee, I'm going to go here, and my son, I'm going to go to Chat State. And everybody, parents, is like, oh, because it's not looked at by the parents as cool. It's not looked at by the parents as a superior educational piece. This is one of your challenges. This college should be the first choice for students coming out of this area. You should make this so competitive that they want to come here, not because they have to. This should be their school of choice. But what happens is my son comes here and he takes 2 years of school and then he goes to University of Tennessee. And his diploma says University of Tennessee. It doesn't say University of Tennessee via Chat State on it. It doesn't have little arrows on it. It comes out of this. But my son saved a ton of money, had a better experience, had much more grounded education at the very beginning of his time frame, and worked with faculty that are much more caring and willing to work with them. So who made the best decision? So what we did on that was we started talking about how do you get high school students interested in a community college and how do you make it cool? Well, the cool part was we did a lot of things. We had flyers and posters and this and that. We did lots of stuff. We have every 8th grade student in our county come on our campus and take a tour. But when they're on the campus and taking a tour, we have our men's basketball team doing like dunking demonstrations and just things that they're like, this is cool. I mean, wow, I never saw it. We have a science museum that we raised funds for. Every elementary student comes through the science museums. We have mastodon bones and things like that. Why? It's great to have that, but the whole purpose of that is to get some of those students interested not just in science, but in education enough to go, well, that's cool. How do you learn about that? That's how you make something cool. So we did a whole hour long at a program, and then it went over so well that we were contacted by another conference who actually asked us to come out and do it, the ACT Enrollment Conference in Chicago. And at the end of our talk, we talked about all the different things we did, and we have a mascot now. That, you know, the mascot does all these really cool things, and this is going to sound corny, but our nickname are the Skippers. It's nautical. It's not exactly the most terrifying term. Who are you going to play? We're going to play the Skippers. You know, it doesn't sound, the mighty fighting Skippers. It just doesn't sound right. But we have a mascot who shows up and does things like that, and he goes all these programs. So we did this, and the interesting part was at the very end of our talk, the two people came up to me, and they were talking with our registrar and our vice president. Our registrar was laughing later, and she's like, yeah, they came up and they went, that's your president. Yeah, that's the president. That's your vice president. Yeah, that's the vice president. You guys act like you like each other. We do. So, you know, there's so many things about at risk. It's a huge part of what the problem is. But to be honest, not everyone's going to make it. But you do everything you can to support them and give them every opportunity to make it. What else do you want to know? I give long answers, don't I? Are we done? It's like... What if you come and nobody asks the question? Go ahead. Go ahead.
How are you doing, Ms. Pollock?
Okay.
I'm Al Douglas, student representative of Chattanooga State, SGA, and I have a question about your accessibility and the way that you approach things like student initiatives like smoke-free campus policies and things of that nature. How would you make this campus green?
There's a lot of ways. We made our campus smoke-free a year and a half ago. What we did was, you know, we got tired of seeing the cigarette butts. You know who the biggest smokers on campus are? Nursing students. I'm not joking. And the funny thing is, the nursing students that go through that, in a lot of places, they can't get hired if they have smoke because they test them for nicotine and other things now to get into nursing. We went smoke-free. The way we did that initially is we decided in January we were going to do it. We have a local board of trustees that's elected, so they had to pass that, so we decided to do it. We spent the whole semester. We didn't initiate it right away because we were like, people are smoking already. We're not going to get them to, you know, I could smoke yesterday, but not today. So we had a semester of it's coming. You know, we're going to do all these things. We had secession programs we set up. We did a lot of things. We had to get our own faculty and staff to understand that if you got caught smoking, you were in more trouble than the students would be. We didn't make it punitive. We didn't, you know, but we went in, we're not going to go, you're going to get $25 fine if you do this. What we talked about was the fact that we want a clean campus. You know how much time your maintenance people probably spend picking up cigarette butts around here? So you can make it. And if that's the direction that we should go here, we do that. We implement that. I'm very accessible. I walk around my campus all the time. I talk to the students, I talk to the different groups. I go to the PTK functions when they have that. I've done things with pizza with the president. It sounds corny. You put pizza out, students will come. And we do that. We put pizza out, and I just sit and I answer questions. You know, you probably are seeing me more dressed up than I normally am. I like khakis, I like not having a tie on, and I have two executive assistants that are always rolling their eyes as I come rolling in, particularly in the summer in the polo shirts, but at least I have the college name on it. But you gotta walk around the campus so people know who you are too. So I go around the campus, I talk and mingle with people. I'll go to the blood drive and things that are happening on the campus. The one thing I haven't gotten to as many things as I would be are some of the sporting events, but I go to the plays. You know, you gotta be seen. And if you're seen, then people are gonna come up and talk to you. And so you got to be out there. Now, if I come here, I'm going to be in incredible shape by the time I walk around this campus. They had me in a golf cart driving me around the other day. But that's just a little bit. You got to be seen and you got to be accessible. You can't just be in your office all the time. The hardest part of coming here would be, I think the college needs to have a lot of internal focus, things brought together again. But I think there's been a gap of perhaps the external points You got to reconnect with all those business people. You got to reconnect with UTC just down the road. You got to make sure you got a great working relationship. You got to get, you got to get out and meet donors. So when you're not seeing him for a couple of days, it can't be, well, where is he? We haven't seen him in a while, because you've been, well, at least everywhere else. So I'm accessible. You want to come see me in my office? I have an open door policy. I do. Come on in. I'll give you a coffee. What else? Look, I can't be that charming that nobody has a question.
Hi, my name's Jeff McCall. I'm an adjunct English teacher here. Two-part question. What is it about Chattanooga that interests you? Why move from Michigan to Chattanooga? And secondly, how would you define what makes a good community college president?
Okay. First one, I walked around the campus today, and every time I went, I'm from Michigan, everyone said the same thing, cold. Now, I'll be honest, I told this story at lunch for all the faculty senate. I was not looking for a job. I honestly was approached by your search consultant who asked me to apply here. I have a great job, I have great pay, I work with fantastic people. It'll be very difficult to leave. So I wasn't searching. In fact, originally, I didn't apply. I told the search consultant, thank you, but I am not ready to do that. I spoke with my family over that weekend, and after talking with them, and this is the silly part, we took my family to Disney about 7 years ago when I was searching for my first president's job, but I just looked in Michigan, and halfway is Chattanooga for our drive. So we stayed here, and my wife was looking through some things in the hotel room, and I think there was a commercial or something at the same time, and the tagline was, "Wouldn't you rather be in Chattanooga?" And she literally went, "I think I might." And that's exactly the way she said it. So when it came back up, and I'm like, well, they have two openings. They have Memphis and Chattanooga. What do you think? It's Memphis. Chattanooga, do you remember the commercial? And she literally brought that up. So I applied. And again, I wasn't really looking. But I don't want that to sound like I'm hesitant to coming here. I did a lot of research, and a lot of research kept me in that search process. I think this school is outstanding, and I think this school has tremendous amount of potential, and I think that I would be proud to be here. Now, the second half of your question, since I babbled on so much in the first one, was, remind me again.
What makes a good community college president?
I think one of the biggest things is communication. You have to have a vision. I think you have to be visionary. I don't mean visionary where you're way out so far, but you have to have a vision. Our mission statement is really simple. We want to maximize student success. That sounds very simplistic, but it's something everybody understands, and it's something that we can make sure we tie all our jobs to. So I think you have to be visionary. You have to be thinking farther down the road than others. That doesn't mean going way off on tangents, but what it means is you have to look at the long-term sustainability of your college. When you're making budget decisions, you can't just look this year or even next year. You got to look at what's the impact in 5 years. When you're trying to decide, are you building a building or what are you doing with it? What's the long-term ramifications for well after you're gone and everybody else in here is gone and you have the next generation here? Did you help set it up for the right thing? I think being available is another piece. I do have an open door policy. People are scared to come into president's offices. I don't know why. I don't think I'm scary, but I think that that's true. So you got to sometimes go out in the hallway, and that's how you get people. Come on back over and look at and stuff. If you ever come in my office, you're going to see on the wall all sorts of, there's like plaques and stuff and things that just mean stuff for me. I literally have a picture on the wall of the Ninja Turtles signed by the guy who does the voices because it's a friend of mine from high school. I have the 1968 Detroit Tigers baseball cards that were mine when I was a kid. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's in my office. And people walk in, I have the Sgt. Pepper album up there. I mean, that's just, I like music. My one secretary laughed because I literally have a Twisted Sister album up on my wall with an autograph to me from Dee Snider. Kevin Twisted Forever Dee Snider, because he sat next to me on an airplane. So I think a lot of it is just being down to earth. I think you have to be able to meet people and talk to everybody because you have so many different hats. You have to get everyone to like you here and work together. You have to be able to make hard decisions. I like to feel like I'm collegial, and I want to have shared governance. I want to have a lot of people to have a say in things, But with shared governance comes something that sometimes doesn't come with it, which is called accountability. You can't just be part of the decision-making process and go, well, I just wanted to say what I thought, and then that's the end. So you got to make those ability to do that, and you have to have that ability to make the hard decisions and stick with them. But as we were saying earlier, you also have to admit when you're wrong. So you have to be able to say, well, you know, I made the decision on that. That's okay, we'll wait. But you have to say, you know, I made this decision, but the factors. I made the decision based on the information that was best at the time, but now it's not. So you have to also be willing to say you made mistakes. I think those things make a good community college president. There's a lot more, but that's part of it. What else? Do you have another one? Go, if you got another one. Another question? No, you're just leaving. This is supposed to be the scariest, hardest part of the day, and you guys are...
That's good. My name is Keisha Caldwell, and I'm the director of the Welcome Center Recruiting. And I just have a general question. I'm sure if you're not, or are you familiar with the Tennessee Promise? And if you are, do you have any ideas of accommodating this new initiative that is connecting community high school kids with community colleges?
Yes, I am familiar with the Tennessee Promise and a lot of the things that the state is doing. I think it's a fantastic program. I'm not sure exactly how much it's going to impact you as far as volumes of students. I know that right now I talked about, you know, the English sections, or we're planning this many, we're going to go way over to this number. You know, as I was talking last night, I wanted to make sure I understood it. And one of the questions I had last night was, okay, I understand it's the last dollar. So if you have somebody who's coming in on a Pell Grant and the Pell Grant doesn't cover it, it's this much more. What if you aren't eligible for a Pell Grant? You know, you have enough in your family, but your parents really can't afford to, you know, they make enough money, but they didn't set anything aside for college and they can't afford it. Do you get any of that money? Well, no. So there's going to be bits and pieces of that. The impact could be huge because I also read that 90% of your high school students actually signed up for it as a possibility. You know, and that's statewide. That's huge. The impact in the long run will be great. It'll be you want more college-going students. Now, that's also got to be tied to that whole Drive to 55 piece, because you know you got the high school students and you got that other group as well. You know, when you got 1 million people out there that started college someplace but didn't finish it, you know where a lot of that came from? A lot of that came because they came to a community college and didn't finish, or they came to a community college and didn't finish their degree, and they went to a 4-year school and didn't finish there either. So they have a lot of background, but they don't have any degree to show for it in the long run. So here, it's going to impact you, and you know, I'm from outside, so I can't walk in and go, I know all the answers to it. I do know that we'd have to work together on whatever we put together. How's this impacting us? People, faculty, staff are going to have to be willing to change. Change is a scary word. You know, there's a Dilbert cartoon that says, change is good, you go first. So you're going to have to be flexible, because you know it's going to mean that you might have a lot more students going into at-risk classes right away, or filling in those other ones. And what's that mean for your student body? What's that mean to your classrooms, your space size? The last thing you want is a lot of influx of students with a greater dropout rate. So how are you going to support them all? How student services and academics, how are they going to work hand in hand on your campus to get this working? Because it's not going to be one area that's going to say, well, student services, you're in charge of making sure they stay here. It isn't. It doesn't work that way. So I wish I had a better answer, but I'm very knowledgeable about it. I'm excited to see how it works. And whether I come here or not, I'm going to follow it up because I think it's an interesting promise. Yeah, anybody here? I feel like I should be running down the row with like prizes or something, you know, handing them out like a game show host. That's okay? That's okay.
Hi, I'm Bill Norman, and I work in the library, and obviously my question is going to be about libraries. What role do you see libraries play in enhancing student learning outcomes and student retention?
Okay. See, now don't think this was a plant. I asked him to ask this question. My 2 oldest children both work in our county library. That's their jobs. That's what they do right now. One's in college, one's in high school. My wife was on the library board, and I actually was the initial fundraiser for a children's wing for that library. And we raised enough money to build an entire children's wing out of the library where they live. The library at the college where I'm at right now, one of the biggest things we did, we brought a brand new librarian in. He unfortunately just left for another job. We added a lot of volumes, but one of the things we did was we added a tremendous amount of ability to download and connect to outside sources as well. So our faculty are doing I'm getting louder as I talk. Our faculty are getting, they're utilizing those resources much more. And it gets into the ebooks. I think that libraries aren't going to go away. They're just going to adapt, and there's still this huge critical piece of resource. They're also a great place to go and sit down and do your work. So it's a gathering spot still. I go in our library and it's always filled. I walked through your library and I saw all the students that were in there. You know, even if it's those little spaces where they have in the back or it's private, they can do small groups. But I think you're going to see more of a shift to a lot of connecting. Downloading of books could be that. You know, one of the coolest things our librarian did was our students on iPads and whatever, the ability to download a lot of books that they wanted to do for research. So we were able to connect, and they were able to pull them right up, and they were able to do them right through there. And they loved it. So that expansion, I think you can see libraries expand. Maybe not the actual solid books, but their services are going to be critical. You had a question? You have a mic.
I have the mic. My name's Talitha McJunkin. I'm Director of Assessment and Planning, and we are headed into a new 10-year strategic planning cycle starting this fall. So everything is changing, the structure, the implementation, the reporting processes, and everything. So I wanted to know what your ideal structure is for a strategic plan and its implementation, and what role you see yourself playing in its implementation and monitoring.
I think the president's role, we're just updating our strategic plan on our campus right now, and we'll roll it out this fall. We created a brand new strategic plan. I've got a background in strategic planning. I've worked with other institutions and helped them with theirs. The first thing we did was we took our strategic plan when we built it, we tied it around the outcomes and assessments and the matrix that we felt we needed to be able to measure how we were doing. The vision, the mission, those pieces are critical. You have to make sure that they line up. By the way, I think you have a great plan. I think it can be improved. And if you are serious about students, whether I'm here or not, put the student part first. Look at your mission statement. Look at your support mechanisms. The very first statement you have in your mission is through excellence in teaching and something, something, something. It's way down the road before you get to students. To ensure student success, we want excellent teaching. Whatever it is you're going to do, the things you have supporting them, it's like the fourth or fifth one down before you mention students. You talk about professional development. These are all critical things, but they're not tied to students, not in your plan. So part of that is the way it's written. I know it, so I'm just saying part of it's semantics, I get it. But at the same time, it's a chance to focus what you're doing. You have an interesting part because you have things that are mandated by the state. So when the state's mandating things, you already have, in a sense, an outline of what you have to do. I also firmly believe that strategic plans have to be fluid. Because unless you have a crystal ball and you know what 10 years down the road is going to be, you can't be sitting with a plan that's outdated. So this newest iteration of our plan is literally one page on the front. You can kind of do that on yours right now. After that, we're going to break it out into about 4 pages with 5 major areas of focus. In that, we're going to have about 3 major goals for each one that no matter what's going to happen, they're not going to go away in 3 or 4 years. You know, we want to increase our graduation rate. Every year we're going to want to do that. We're going to want to increase our retention rate. That's another big one. Under the model part, the student part, we have a section on teaching and learning. We have a section on internal constituents. We have a section on external constituents. And we have a section on sustainability of the campus. Under that, it's obvious to put, we tend to put a lot of obvious things in there. We're going to have a balanced budget. Well, you have to by law. So it's not as if it's really strategic. You have to do that. But what about making sure the campus buildings are fixed? And so how's it the building parts and the deferred maintenance and all the other things that happen about the contracts and all the things that are there, all that's tied into that. So some of those things will never kind of go away. But then underneath, we're going to have every year that we have 3 major divisions because we're a little smaller than you are. We have academics, we have student services, we have 3 vice presidents. And we also have the administrative stuff, which is a lot of the finance and maintenance and all those other things that fall there. Each one of them will have a one-page document talking about what their goals are for that year over the next 3 years. At the end of the year, we'll measure all those, we'll look at all those things. I'll stand up in front of everybody. I do a campus update kind of like this once a semester. And I cover the budget, I cover all the good stuff that's happening. Here's how we're doing, here's how we're not doing. This is what we have to work on. We'll tear those off, we'll put them up again the next year, we'll recreate them. So that part will be fluid every year. So, okay? Way over here.
Hi, my name is Juliette Biondi, and I coordinate high school programs on campus. I understand you have a lot of background in early college and middle college, and I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. 24% of our college population on our campus are high school students. Our high school students, not out of high school, not doing, they're either dual enrolled, they're part of our early college program or part of our middle college program. We had one of the first early college programs anywhere. About 5.5 years ago, we created that. We followed it with a middle college program. Now, honestly, they're both the same. The early college program was actually off campus at a site outside of our area. It was about 30 miles away. We ended up having donated to us, it was a small school district, a building that we could utilize, because if we taught by Michigan law, if we taught in the high school, it became almost a high school class. It didn't work that way. So we ended up having our own building. We started with 28 students. The way that program worked, now Michigan funding's a little different. So our funding mechanism is the schools get the funding, the high schools, and then say you're taking 5 classes, so they got 5/5 of the money. They ended up starting with us for 2 classes. So we would end up with 2/5 of the money. They ended up with 3/5 to pay for the tuition. But they started. Now this was a school district that had less than a 50% college-going rate when students graduated. Their valedictorian the year before was literally working at Burger King because she had no plans to go further in that. No ideas, just didn't want to do it. That first group of 28, 27 of them, when they completed it, because it was a grade 13. So they started with 2 classes a semester, then 3 classes, and then last year it was 4 classes a semester, 1 at high school. So we had students graduating from college before they finished their high school degree, because the graduation ceremony was after that. Out of the 28, 27 of them graduated or went on to a 4-year school. We ended up adding a middle college. The middle college program is on our campus. Students are integrated in all the regular classes with all of our regular students. Sometimes they come during certain times of the day a little more than others, but they are there. And literally, they have a better success rate than our average student. They have a better retention rate, better grade point average. These are really students that want to get a head start on college. We are very proud of those. We've been nationally recognized on a lot of those things. Now, there are flaws in them, and we had to learn. We put a high school counselor right on our campus who works with just those students. We still have a couple of faculty members, particularly one, who's a friend of mine, by the way, it laughs, but he literally complains, these students are immature. I can pick them out of my classes, and I'm thinking, how can you pick them out? Because some of them are 17, and we have 17-year-old graduates from high school sometimes that are 18. How do you know? And he said, well, some of them are immature. I'm thinking, I know 40 and 50-year-olds that are immature. You just have to work with that. So, again, 24% of our population are high school students. That's huge. I think it's great. It's the right thing to do for the students. It's not perfect for everybody, but it's the right thing to do. I don't even know how we're doing time-wise. Are you tired yet? 20 more minutes? I don't know who was more depressed about that, me or you guys.
Okay, I'll ask a question if no one else has one.
You want to sit down on this stool?
No, I'm
Okay.
doing great standing. I'm Debbie Adams, and at the college we've had a long history of workforce development and being responsive to our community. We've developed several new degrees and certificate programs in response to their needs. What are your thoughts on the role the community college should play in workforce development?
Is there another part? It's critical.
Any example you may have of partnerships you may have done in the past?
It's critical. Workforce development is a part. You got to remember, when community colleges started, first of all, you had junior colleges. And junior colleges were there for students that couldn't have the ability to go to 4-year colleges. And then eventually it grew into almost a workforce development type of thing. Well, we can train people in areas that maybe you don't need a college degree. So you had this whole piece. Now, community colleges continue to evolve. And then in the late 60s, when they really became community colleges, and you got them nationwide going all, it's like pretty much the late 60s, 65 through 70 was like the big boom. This was a big part of it. We can train people. Now, the difficult part, we just had a president's meeting of all the Michigan community college presidents. The difficult part is we have a governor who's telling everybody that there's a huge skills gap. And there are, and you have skills gaps here too. And you should go to the community colleges for these quick programs. You can be great, because not everybody should go to college. It's a college. And oh, by the way, guess who started his career at a community college and then went to a 4-year college? So, by the way, the quick little story aside, he and the lieutenant governor both started community colleges, didn't finish, jumped to 4-year schools, finished their degrees. One of the things that they mark us down on is if you don't graduate. So we went, by the way, both of you would be considered a failure in our system right now. The community colleges they went to, they backtracked and awarded them both 2-year degrees. So we're like, now you're successful. Put that in the matrix. The programs you're talking about are critical, but they have to work hand in hand with the more traditional the transfer classes. And I've seen community colleges and other places where there's a divide on a campus. You know, your occupational programs, you're somehow less than the transfer programs or the liberal arts programs. You can't. You know, those silos have to go away because you're all one college. You know, it's like saying, oh, you're left-handed people or you're right-handed people. It doesn't make sense. A huge part of this area, and I looked at all your buildings, and I just got the tour all around everything. You have some tremendous potential for growth in your regular programs and in your workforce development. Workforce development spawns a lot of things. You serve a need for the community. You serve a need for those students. Not all of them want a 4-year degree. You know, you want them, you know, welders, you know, all the other things that are out there. It gives them a huge start so that they can jump into all these other things. You know, you find out a lot of those students come back sometimes for another degree because they're out there now they want to progress up the ladder. It also connects you with all those businesses. You know, and in your cases, you have some really high-profile names you're talking about, you know, with Tennessee Valley Authority and the building you have on here that looks like it says one name and it's pronounced a different way. You know, Volker, right? Got it? Volker? Okay. Those things are huge when it comes to, you know, workforce development. You know, it's one of your roles and responsibilities. We've done some stuff with some of our areas. A unique program, and here's the example you asked for giving us. We have a mini grant kind of thing going on in Michigan. It's a workforce development plan. It's coming from the state. And what happens is somewhere about $500,000 comes in about every 9 months for each community college. We rotate around. About 4 or 5 of us will get a chance. About every few months, the next group takes it. And it's for growth for jobs. So you're running a plant or a facility, and you have to hire so many students at 175% of the minimum wage. They have to be new jobs, brand new employees. The state allows the capture of the income tax for those people for the time that we're doing training, and then funnels it back in for their training. So the state wins because you have new jobs, the workers win because they have new jobs, the business wins because they are actually getting new training, and then the state eventually wins again because once they're fully employed and the training stops, now they're capturing the tax dollars for their income tax. So in our case, in the last couple of years, we've done $1.2 million in this training. Now, the college only gets about 14% of that money. So it's not as if we're making tons of money, but we're doing it for the right reason. We've put $1.2 million into the local economy. We've created 240 brand new jobs in a small county that we had a 26% unemployment rate in the city during the height of the Great Recession. So there's some examples of that. Statewide, it's created over 13,000 jobs. That is part of workforce development. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Barry Jennison, Dean of the Business and Information Technologies Division here. And you mentioned earlier that you had done some research on us, and I was curious about, based on that research and your experience through this process, what do you think will be your biggest challenge or primary focus as our new president?
I don't know if it's considered a challenge as much as I can give you a focus. I think the focus is bringing everybody back together again. and focusing on the students. I'll give you an example. You are not as hard off as some of you believe, I think, with all the difficulties you've had over the last year. Yes, there have been some problems, but you're not in a difficult situation. Here's a difficult situation. I started my first presidency. Now, first of all, the funny part is, I told this before, I interviewed on Friday the 13th. I started April Fool's Day. The first day I was there was a blizzard. The first graduation ceremony I had, there was a tornado warning, and it blew a tent away. And don't think badly if I come here, this is going to happen. And then the Great Recession started, okay? That was just the beginning. The president prior to me left under much worse circumstances than here, much worse. Faculty were terribly divided. The Board of Trustees, which was locally elected, 7 board members locally elected, literally were suing each other. The newspaper was having a field day with the whole thing. People were arguing. Staff and faculty were tired of going out and all their friends asking, what is going on where you work? You know, because they took a lot of pride in where they worked. Literally, there was a faculty member across the street from the president's office that had on his window every day, he would change the number of how many days left before the president left. When I started, he told me that story, and he said, so if you ever walk out your door and you see numbers up there, you know you're in trouble. And I went, no. If you ever walk out your door and see numbers on my window, you're in trouble. So it literally, our foundation board was fighting with our regular board. They wouldn't talk. Nobody trusted anybody. Our alumni association wasn't working with anybody. Those are problems, and we've solved them. Perfectly? No. You know, if you're going to call our campus and talk to everybody, you're going to find people that are still really, really unhappy. And I've said this before. Robert Kennedy said, 10% of the people are against everything all the time. And I do that when I do that. The first time I ever did that in the campus, about 300 people in front of me, they're all faculty and staff, and they all started looking around at each other. It was like, because everybody knows who those people are. So coming here, you know, I've gone through that once already, and I can come here and do that again. We fix those things. It's not perfect, but we are nationally recognized for things we're doing. We went from $2.7 million in our foundation to over $7 million. We did our first capital campaign ever in the middle of the Great Recession. We wanted to raise $1 million, and everyone said we're nuts. We raised 2.2. We created a memorandum of understanding between the boards. This is your responsibility, this is this responsibility, so stop arguing about it. We pulled people back together, and our biggest thing, and I know I keep saying this and harping on the whole student success thing, if you focus on the students, it's really hard for you to argue, no matter what your argument is, if you're not looking at the students. Because I'm going to look you right in the eye and go, is this the best thing for our students? And if you say no, then come back with a different answer. If it's yes, we're going to implement it. Part of that also was listening to everybody and talking to everybody. So I think the same thing happens here. So the big challenge in coming in, I don't even know if it's a challenge as much as a goal and a focus, is to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're all working together. We can disagree, but we better disagree with some civility, and we better respect each other. And I can't walk around as a president and mandate that. You can't go be civil. You know, you're not writing up, summons for someone not being civil. But you can, at a certain point, have the rest of the group people here. You know who's going to make the change on this campus? It's going to be you guys. It's going to be you working together because you want to work together. And I think you do. I just think you just need some leadership that helps get that going. And then the second part is reaching back out to the community and making sure you've reestablished all those connections so you don't lose all that. And then the final part, how do you know you're successful? When you can walk out the door and people are asking you, oh, I heard this great thing going on your campus, and you're talking about that, not about all the other stuff. And then you also have people nationally, not just statewide, coming into you going, how are you doing that? You know, we get people asking us those questions, and that's how we know we're doing well.
Okay, you partially answered my question, but I want a little bit more. My name is Sandy Rudder. I'm Dean of Student Life and Judicial Affairs. And I want to hear how you will hear the voice of governance by the students at Chattanooga State.
Well, I think the first thing is when we have our student government put together, I always offer myself to come into any of their meetings. So what do you want to know? Do you want me to come in and talk? Do you want to come in and meet with me? We can do that. So we set that up. know, it's funny because a couple times they're like, would you like to meet? Sure, and then we never meet, and I leave it up to them. But I go in, I've gone in and sat down to listen to their concerns and complaints, and sometimes it's best to have that voice because they do represent the students. But a lot of it also is walking to campuses and talking to the students in the hallways, you know, and just asking them how you doing, what's going on. You just have to be out there. If you can't do it that way, you start organizing meetings so people can come in. What are the big issues? You know, it's surprising the issues that we think are really important to students and what they think are important. We're not usually on the same page. What's the number one issue on most college campuses for students? Parking. It is. It's parking. I mean, and if you have a lot of parking, it's because I'm not close enough to the building. I'm parking farther away. Nobody's putting a student in a golf cart and zipping them around the campus here. But it's interesting because you would think that. What we also do is, no, we did this one, and this was really, really cool. It was our faculty member did this on his own. We have a faculty member in charge of marketing on the marketing program on our college campus, our degree program in marketing. He created a marketing and communications club for students. And they took on the challenge of what are the reasons students are not staying here? So they did a survey, and with my blessing, certainly go out and do it. They created their own survey, they wrote their own survey, they did face-to-face interviews with other students. They interviewed over 400 and some students on our campus, closer to 500, I believe. Now they came back and the questions were very simple. You know, what things could stop you from completing your degree here? Now it's a little biased question because the first thing you think of is you got to think of all the things that would stop you. So you're going to make a list, and it's not the things that would keep you here, it's just all the things that are wrong. Finances were the number one for students. And so they talked about that. You know, we talked about our students that have a Pell Grant, but they're not putting it toward their classes. Their car broke down. So if I don't have a car, I can't get to class, so I got to fix my car first, and I don't have enough money for next semester. So finances were the biggest one. Transportation was the second one on the campus. But not only did we just listen to what they had to say, but I had them do a presentation to our Board of Trustees with all the data. They did a presentation to my cabinet with all the data. And then I went and met with them at their next meeting after that to have them talk about more and their ideas, because they can get into that part. So I sat down with them for an hour. So there's an example, okay? Anybody? And there's back there's somebody right there on the end.
I am Christina Dietz. I am the coordinator of functional technical systems for the Student Affairs Division. You kind of lead into the question that I had about data-driven decisions in a community college campus environment. I want to know what your opinion is on the importance of data, and do you use data in your current role? And if so, can you give us an example of where data has swayed a decision?
Absolutely. First of all, I don't like the phrase data-driven decisions because data actually doesn't drive anything. Data-informed decisions. You take the data, you want to become, and this is why I believe strongly in using data, you want to be informed. If you have the ability to gather information that has you create a better informed decision, why would you not use that? Now, the difference between that and the things that I do on our campus is I will not use data to beat somebody over the head with it, okay? The other thing about that, though, is data is going to turn up a lot of rocks and show a lot of ugly things on the campus. People better be aware of it, because you know the funny thing is about that? Most of that are secrets everybody already knows. We all know who the best instructors are. We all know who the instructors are that don't do very well. We know which programs are succeeding and which ones are not. We all know that, but we need to put it right in front of everybody. So you want one example? One example is I created a group of faculty. I asked them all to get together. I let them self-select. I had to have one from every basic divisional area. And I told them we were going to do a viability study of our data, of our programs. You're going to rank them. You're going to rank our 36 programs, 1 through 36. And I brought in all the outside stuff that I knew from all the programs and things that I go to. I'm like, you have to make sure you include these things somewhere in how you put it together. You also decide what's important. So they had things in there like graduation rates, and they had a whole variety of things. And they weighted it. The first part was really funny because they called me back into their meeting about a half an hour after they started and said, okay, you want us to really rank everything? People are going to be mad. Yes, I want you to rank everything. An hour later, they had me come back again. Okay, rankings, right? Yeah, yes, rankings. They did. They ranked everything, 1 through 36. There was a numeric value, and it was all through all these points. I ended up taking about 12 of the programs in the bottom and putting them on notice. I put them on notice for two reasons. One was we were looking at a financial difficulty. We're still in a recession. We didn't know where we were going to come out on the other end. And it takes us 2 years to drop a program. The second one was the fact that these programs needed something to make them better. And now we know what, because we could look right at it. The biggest group that fell to the bottom were engineering and technology degrees. And I've told this to the people that took me all around. Engineering and technology, the problem was we had 3 graduates in 1 year from one program. We had 1 graduate in 3 years from another program. These are issues. We're going to get judged by the state on our graduation rates. You know, we have 12 students in this program. We have, you know, and what they realized was, after a lot of research, totally done through our faculty, 100% done by the faculty, they realized that they needed to combine some of these. They had students like you and the person sitting next to you in the same class from 2 of their different engineering programs with 2 different course numbers, the same book, the same class, and the bookstore would divide the books out so you didn't have a book because they had more books in their stack than you, even though you're in the same class with the same book. So what they did was they started taking things, well, we should have the same course number for both those programs no matter what you're in. This doesn't make sense. It doesn't transfer very well. They fixed the programs. They went out, they did research with the businesses, the companies, they talked to the 4-year schools, they talked to our registrar in our admissions office, and they found out all their issues and they fixed them. And all those programs are off notice, all of them. That's one example. You want to know an easy secondary one? Let me ask you this. Put your hands up and be honest about this, okay? Honestly. Do you have a student-friendly class schedule? Yes? Please note, not a single one of you, maybe half up your hand, you think you have a student-friendly class schedule? Okay. Do you all talk to each other when you create the class schedule? Because what happens is, I'll give you an example. I'll give you 2 examples, and these are both data-driven, okay? Data-driven. One of the things we found out was at the first community college I was at, was I vice president. We had 3 developmental classes. And we had to make sure our students in the evening, because we have a lot of evening students, 2/3 of our students took a class in the evening, either a full-time student in the evening or they would end up with a night class sometime. So we'd offer all 3 of those classes from 3 different departments. That's why I'm asking you, it's not the same thing. 3 different departments also will do that. You need those classes to get into the next level class. So we offered all 3 of them at night, the same night, the same time, because they weren't talking to each other about the class schedule. Here's what we did at where I am right now. This caused a big stir, and this was my point, and I made them do this. But we said, okay, we have a great data person. We have probably one of the greatest data people ever. I would hate to leave her because she's that good. We said, okay, I want you to create a schedule. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Half-hour increments, 8, 8:30, 9, 9:30, I want you to plot a point on a graph. How many classes start at each of those times? So here's Monday, 8 o'clock, 9, 8:30, 9. How many classes start at each of those? So we have a great, because our faculty all said the same thing. We absolutely have a student-friendly schedule. We're here, 8 o'clock, a few classes. 8:30, nothing much. 9 o'clock. Okay, 9 o'clock, we got about 20 classes that start. Now you gotta remember we have 5,000 students, so think this through. 9:30, 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit. We got up to about 11 o'clock and we got up to maybe 25 classes that would start. 1 o'clock, 64 classes start. The class after that, back down to 20. It was physically impossible for our students at the 1 o'clock class to get another class. 2/3 of them could not get another class on either side of their schedule if they took a 1 o'clock class. Who are we creating the class schedule for? And then we wonder why we have no parking. Well, everyone's stuck here at 1 o'clock. They're all here at the same time. But it was a very, very eye-opening thing. And then we also found this. You know, our classes start at 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We barely had anything start at 4. Why is 4 an important time for a class to start? You can get out of work for an hour if you're working and be at a college campus at 4 o'clock. and take a class, and if you really want to work hard, you can take another class at 6 o'clock. So you can get 2 classes at the same time. We had 2 classes that started at 4 o'clock. We never asked our students what they wanted. So that's the importance of data-informed decision. Who else has a question? One more. Just make it awesome.
Well, my name is April. I am a student worker here with IT support. It has been said that we learn more from our failures than from our success. Can you give us an example of a failure and what you learned from that experience?
Oh, you had to make it a good question. Yeah, I'll give you an example. When I was over at West Shore Community College, I was bringing up the class schedule as one of those things. And I thought I knew what I was talking about. I was a vice president. And I went about working with our faculty in the wrong way. I didn't do it in the collegial manner that I try to do now. I embarrassed them. You know, I put the data out there. I did these things. And I'm like, what's wrong with you people? You're not working together. We should be doing this and this and this. And the backlash that was there, because it was such a sensitive subject, was if I could go back in time, I would do it totally different. And I learned from that, because we didn't get anything accomplished. I just caused more problems than before. I meant well, and I thought I was doing the right thing for our students, but I didn't do it in the right manner. And so I still have faculty that'll talk about, well, you've changed a lot since you were here, a long time ago. That's an example. I can give you my wife will be here at 4. She'll tell you a lot more about my failures. So. Well, thank you. Listen, I appreciate you listening to me talk and all that other stuff, and I hope I hang around and talk to you. If any of you want to get a hold of me, you can still get a hold of me. You can send me an email if you have a question on my college campus. I'll email you back. I know it's a crazy week for you. We have graduation Friday. So I appreciate the fact that you guys came out here and actually, the weird thing about being in an interview is a lot of people get nervous. And I had somebody tell me this once, and I'll close on this. The greatest thing about being in an interview is everybody has to listen to everything you say. And they have to look like they're really interested at the same time. So thanks for coming in and listening to me talk.
I just want to remind everybody that there is a feedback form available on our website. If you go to the Chattanooga State website and click on the presidential search, you can find this particular video archived in a feedback form. And the Chancellor has assured us that he will read every one of those. And so please take the opportunity to make your voices heard and fill out those forms. Thank you very much.